Hi, and I hope you're doing well. So I thought I'd share this project that I'm doing, this thing that I'm doing for me. I'm building a SaaS, a software as a service, and it has been a while that I've been working on it, but it has come to a point where it's not really scalable and I have to refactor the whole thing, and that's what we are going to do today. So I'm here on WSL. I'm using Ubuntu 24.04, I guess. And I'm just going to go to my projects and then the company's name. And we have a website for the company and we have a website for the software, the product. So basically I'm building a financial management system. And this is a system for anybody who wants to keep track of their expenses, their incomes, and just know if they're missing money, if they have more money, and what can they do with the money. It's just to keep track of that and give them a feedback of how they're using their money and what can they do with it. So I'm actually going to make a new directory called Mayan, which is the name of the system. And Mayan is actually an acronym that stands for Manage Your Own Money. So now I have to go to GitHub and clone 125 repositories. So this is the company's profile, and these are the projects. These are all actually private except for the company and the main website, but these are all private projects. First of all, I'm just going to show you the project, and here we have three issues. The first one is implement actual clean architecture, and that's because I have a dependency in my core service with the infrastructure, which should not happen. The core service should determine what the information that it wants, the information that it is going to handle, and then everybody else got to work with that. So it's not actually the infrastructure that should be, it's not actually the core that should have a reference to infrastructure, and it should be the other way around. And then the second thing is break all God services, because I just have big files that they just do a lot of things. They have a lot of responsibilities, and it's hard to follow now. It's hard to follow what they're doing, to debug, to know what's going on, and it's even harder to scale. So the goal here in this issue is to implement the comment pattern, I think. I'm going to see what is the best fit in the fly, in this video. I'm going to decide. And then the third thing is to group all shared packages into one. So I'm going to explain this now. So basically, I have a shared service for each service that I have, and that's because of RabbitMQ and Mass Transit. I use Mass Transit in each of my services, and Mass Transit actually gets the messages through its type. So whenever you want to send and get a message between services, you have to use the same type of the message that you want to receive and send. And because of that, because there must be just one type between the services, the only way that I figured it would work is to make a package of it. So I made a shared project of each one of their services and then a package out of each one of the services. And it's just too much, I guess. It's just a lot of packages, and I think I'm going to just make just one package called logicalcolossal.mayan.shared. And this package, this project will hold all of these types, so everything that must be shared, including the domain, because I have the history service, the main service, which I want to change the name to record service, and they all share the same entities. And I did it in a way that I have the same entity copied twice in these two services. So I think I'm just going to put everything in this shared package and yeah, see how that works. So to start off, I want to start off fresh, it's going to be basically like I'm starting from zero, but I'm actually going to clone the projects. So I'm going to make the project for the shared packages now, and this will be the name logicalcolossal.mayan.shared, and then there will be the identity service and the record service. So the first project that I'm going to clone is this main project. This basically holds the scripts to run all of the project because they all run in Docker containers, and this is just the configuration to populate the databases and run the projects in their own containers. So I'm going to clone this. I'm going to git clone this project inside this folder. Inside this folder. So I just clone the project. Here it is. And I'll have to change this git ignore because now I want to put every project inside here. Here we have the seeds, and I don't remember, but I got this in some website. I think was public APIs or something, and then I found a country API, and they had this JSON, and I just, the fact that MongoDB uses BSON, which is a binary JSON, you can just populate the database with JSON. That's fine. This is the command to do it. You basically do a Mongo import, and then you pass the host, and this is the name of the container, and then the name of the database, the collection that you want, the type, and then the file, and if it is a JSON array or not. Here we have the Docker ignore and the git ignore, and here we have the solution, which will be changed. I think I'm going to delete this and then make a new one. And this is the Docker compose. And here we have sec, which is a container that it is supposed to hold all the logs of the system, and it works when I run in my computer, even with Docker, but on my on-premise server, it doesn't actually have the logs, and I don't know why. But anyway, it's been a while that I haven't worked on the system. And here we have two Mongo databases, and that's because in the services I'm using transactions, and you can work with transactions with just one database. You must have two databases to work with transactions. And transactions are actually great because it keeps the data consistent. I have a unity of work that I'm going to show you after, but I have a unity of work that it just stores all the comments that must be executed, and they are executed all at once inside a transaction. And if one of them fail, of course, nothing happens. Then we have this other database, Mongo Common, which is a common database between them. And I think this database is just meant to hold information that doesn't change, like the currencies or the countries. I think they're both in this database. And then the Mongo 1 and Mongo 2, which are the transactional databases, they are actually the databases that hold the important data of the system. Then here I have a Mongo setup. This container is just meant to run the script, and then it dies right after. And then I have one container for each service. So I'm going to start off by deleting this. I think this is a script that you use to push the packages to GitHub and instead of nuggets, and then you can have private packages. And I don't know why this is here. I don't think it needs to be here, I guess. So I'm going to delete these three files. That global.json is defining the .NET version, which was the version 8, and we are going to use the 10 now, so we can delete this, I guess. And also the solution targets, and I'm going to also delete the solution because I'm going to make a new one. But I'm just going to delete this and save. Yes. And now I kind of have a question, for myself and for anyone who's interested in this. And this is the project that is supposed to run all of the services. And as you know, by now you must know that this is a microservices architecture. And I don't know if it makes sense to keep all of the services inside this folder. And I mean like working in a monorepo, because at the end of the day, I need to have all of these services inside this main folder so I can run the Docker Compose and run all of the containers and make the project run all together. But in development, it makes more sense in my head to work with each project separately instead of opening this main folder and having all of the projects in here, because what I'm going to do is just ignore in the git ignore. I'm going to ignore all of the other folders, the services, and just keep the seed and the Docker Compose, which is what I need to run the project. And I'm going to ignore all of the other services. Or does it make sense to just have a monorepo and then I get rid of the .git folder inside of each service, and then I just have one project, you know, just a one monorepo, although it is a microservice architecture. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm going to stick with my plan. Then, I can always refactor after. So now I'm going to create this shared package, and I'm going to ignore it in here. And now what I'm going to do is clone all the other projects except for the main project, which I want to rename. And I want to, start a new main project so I can organize it in a way that it makes sense, I guess. So I'm going to do a git clone. Then I'm going to clone the identity service. Now git clone to clone the messenger service. And this is just a service to send the e-verification email, to send SMS, although I don't have SMS right now, but it's meant for that. Now I'm going to clone the history service, and this will be a tricky one to refactor. Now I'm going to clone the country service, and this service is just for when the person is signing up in the application, and they put the date of birth, they put their name, and they can also put the country where they're from. And then I could probably use an API of countries to do that. But the reason that I've made this service is that maybe in the future I might have a feature in the system that it can calculate the tax that the person is going to pay for the country they're in. I don't know if that makes sense. So just let me know what you think. If you know about this stuff, if you know about microservices and working with countries, maybe I can use API and have flexibility and scalability, or should I just keep this service? And last but not least, my currency service. And this service just defines the available currencies that are in the system. So for now we have four, and they are dollar, American dollar, uh, euro, and GBP, which is the UK currency, and reais, which is the currency from Brazil. So with all of that, we almost have everything that we need. We are just missing one service, which is the main service that I named when I started this project. But I want to rename it to record service. So I'm just going to start a new project called record. So I think it's better than cloning and renaming the previous project, just to organize everything. And with this shared project, I think I can put my generic repository in here. I think that would be pretty useful. And I also need to remake the entities. I'm going to show you all of the problems after. So yeah. So let's just make the the new project, the new service, logicalcolossal.main.record service. And this is the main service. This is the service that will be responsible to create all the user's records, everything that he releases to the system, like their expenses, if they pay tax in it, and the category of that expense or that income. We also support transfers. So all of this will be responsibility of the record service. And the history service will be responsible to hold all the history and like make a resume of the whole history. So now you can see that Git is kind of tracking these new projects that I cloned. So I'm just going to ignore all of these projects. So it's pretty much. So here's something that I can do. I can Shift V all of this, 6J. Actually, it was meant to be 5. Yank, 8J, Enter, P, and now I can Control Q, and then select this whole block, D, and remove the end of each line, which I don't know how to do with Ving motions. Yeah, I am that awful. Save this, and now you can see that Git is no longer tracking these folders. So another thing that I want to put in here is conventions and documentation to work with the project, like commit conventions. And for that, I think I'm going to make a docs folder. Um, then maybe a folder called conventions. And then here I'm going to put a git maybe a git markdown. But git is not actually a accurate name, because I intend to hold in this file all the conventions for git commits or GitHub pull requests. I think I'm going to go with version control. I guess that's a good name, right? Because it encapsulates Git, GitHub, maybe even the version of the services if you want to have conventions on that. I guess that's a good name. I'm going to go with that. So saved, conventions. So source control conventions. This is commit conventions. And then we can have pull request conventions. Yeah, I think that's good for now. It's just me working on this. So I think I'm going to commit I'm going to make a commit now because it is easier for me to do small commits, because once I do a lot of changes on the project, I kind of get a little bit lazy with the commits and I just send everything in one commit. So I'm just going to do that now before I become messy. So everything that was deleted, I'm going to make a commit calling this a refactor. And I don't even know what to put in here. I think I'm just going to say project, because this is like the main project, like it is going to hold all of the services. I don't even know what to put in here, whatever. Then comments. Now I'm going to do a comment for this one, just this git ignore. I think this is a chore, right? Because it's a configuration. And I'm going to say just ignoring services and package. And this one is just docs project. And then I'm going to put adding conventions, adding commit conventions. I think I'm going to push this because I think I won't change this anymore. So the camera died, it's been a week, and I'm going to show you what I have right now. Here I am at the project, at this path. I don't know if I did this in the previous part, but I've cloned everything. So now I have a country service, currency, history, identity, messenger, record shared. I have some more things here on the shared project that I'm going to show you. The documentation is still the same with the version control conventions. And now we have the front-end projects, the documentation for the application, which is using Nextra, and the front-end, which is in Next.js. It's actually two parts. This is a mono repo, and then here in apps we have mobile and web. The web application is in Next.js. The mobile app is made with React Native using Expo. And then we have the packages. Here in the packages we have the UI part, which is the shared UI components that can be reused in both web and mobile. Then we have some models here and assets. On the front end I also have some scripts, and this is to generate the mobile theme using the web theme, which is CSS. So I made a script that basically takes the CSS theme and then transforms it into a TypeScript file to make it compatible with native. Here I also have languages, and this is just the translations for each language that I'm going to work with, which is just English and Portuguese. And I have one file per page with the translations, and that's it. Now here on the shared project, I have added here on the core the iRepository and the iUnit of work, and this is just to keep the clean architecture, and both of these files can be shared between all of the services. Then I have one folder for each service, and they have the messages here to communicate using RabbitMQ and Mass Transit, which is way better than what I had before, which was one package per service. And here I also have helpers, which are just generic classes that can be useful for all of these services. Like this enumeration, this is just a fancy way of doing enums. This basically allows me to have strongly typed enums. I did this by following a video of a guy called Milam something, I don't remember his name, But if you look for smart enums, you are going to find this exact file here. And with this project, this shared project, I have this packages folder, and here I have all the Nugget packages that are pushed into my organization in GitHub. And I also have the domain here, which is very important. It's probably the most important part of the system. And I'm going to start with the interfaces. The base interface for everything in the system is this identity. This is just an interface that defines that each class must have an ID and a tenant ID, anybody that inherits from this interface. This tenant ID is nullable because all of the documents that are on the database, documents because we are using MongoDB here, they are all going to have a tenant ID on the shared database, which is a database meant for the users that have a free plan. But the documents can also not have a tenant ID because for people who have a premium role or a pro role, I don't know what to call it yet, they won't have a tenant ID. The database name will be their tenant ID, and that is the database that is going to be used for them. And now the two important interface of the system, the iAccount interface, and this is the interface that defines the base properties of the accounts. The accounts are just like your own accounts, like your bank account, your wallet. They just represent that. The account in the system is meant to mirror your account in real life to help you keep track of your expenses. So these are the common properties between all of the accounts. They must have an account type, a name, a currency, and this currency is going to summarize all of the other currencies, and I'm going to show you what I mean. The date that they were created, if the account is still active or not, and this is not for a soft delete, this is for the user if they have an active account and if they stop using it and they start using it again, then they just can recover their account. And there's the financial record, which is the main thing on the system. The financial record is really any financial record, like can be an income and outcome, it can be a transfer in any account, in any type of account. This is what is going to be registered in the database. So for every financial record, we need to know what is the account, what is the category for it, the currency that this record was made, the amount. We also have a type, if it is income, outcome, or transfer, the date of this record. The repetition is if it is a installment, if it is something fixed. How long will this happen? Is it weekly? Is it monthly, annually? Maybe it may be a subscription in Netflix or something. Then it's fixed, and then you will have this record registered for all every month, and then created the dates that this register was created. If it was updated, maybe a subcategory, maybe has an exchange rate because the currency that this register was made is different than the currency of the account. Then we need an exchange rate and an exchange fee. We also have tags, observations. This is just for the user. And then we have a goal and goal ID, which is something that I'm going to implement in the future. So now we can come to the entities. The most basic ones, a bank account. This basically has an account type of bank. It has a name, currency, the day that it was created, and then we have a list of currency balance. The currency balance is just the balance that you have in your account in that currency. So here I have an ID for each currency balance, the account that they belong to, and I need to have the account ID here because there's a query that I get only the currency balances in every account. And then it is easier to query it if the account ID is here. It's just faster in this way. The currency code, the name in plural, the symbol, the initial balance of the account, and the balance date, where the dates of this initial balance. And same thing here, we have an active and the updated at. Now, you can also see that we inherit from a class called base entity. And this is just an abstract class that implements the ID and the tenant ID. So I don't have to do this every time, in every entity. So for the category, I've changed it a bit. I used to have the icon name and the icon provider stored in the database, but now I'm just going to have a key and the front end deals with it. I'm also going to have a color if the category is static or not, which just means that it cannot be deleted. Then we can have an array of financial record type. So you can create a category that can work for incomes and outcomes and maybe transfer, or maybe just two of them, or maybe just one of them. You can just select which financial record types will have access to this category. And then of course we have a list of subcategories. Then we have a credit card account, and this is the reason why I needed to refactor, because it started getting very complicated. Before I had just one class called account, and it just got bigger and bigger. The same thing with the financial record. And now I have to break it down in many pieces so I can scale this in a better way. This has an account type of credit card, currency, and I'm not done with the properties. I need to see what I'm going to put here in the future, but I know it is going to have a limit, and everything's the same. And here I have a currency class. This is just a class that holds the properties for a currency, which is the code, the name of the currency, and the name in plural of the currency, and the symbol. Here's the exchange fee. We just have a value and a type, which is wrong because I made an exchange fee type and didn't put it there. So this is the exchange fee. It's just a value and a type that says if this is percentage or a money value. Then we have a financial record for each type of financial record: income, outcome, and transfer. The income and outcome could be the same record, because the difference is just if the record has a positive amount or negative. But I made it this way because I think it will be easier to make pattern match in the system. So here we have the same thing: account ID, category, currency code, amount, date, the repetition, the record type is income, the day it was created, if it was updated, subcategory, exchange rate, exchange fee, tag, observations, and the goal ID. The outcome is the same thing, but the amount will be negative. And then the transfer has a little difference, that it is this transfer ID. The transfer is just meant for your accounts. So if you make, for example, a withdrawal from your bank account to your wallet account, this counts kind of as a transfer. And then you can put a category saying withdraw, but it is a transfer, and there will be two documents registered in the database. And these two documents will have the same transfer ID, and that's how we know the both records and both accounts that were in the transfer. I have here basically everything stays the same. I have here this property, if the bill is closing, which we don't need it right now, so I guess I can delete this. This was when I was trying to make the credit card work, but it got really complicated. Now I'm going to make the basic stuff that I had before work in a better architecture. and then I will start to try to make the credit card work again. So here's the repetition. It might have an ID. If it has an ID, it means that it repeats itself, so it may be daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. If it doesn't have an ID, it means that it is a unique repetition. It was just that time. I'm also going to, instead of use required, I'm going to just put it in the constructor. So installments is an int, and this is the number of installments that you might have, because it might be installment or not. And we also have the periodicities, whatever. And this is just how often will this happen. So you can see that we have daily, weekly, monthly, or annually. And I just copied this and didn't change the number. Right. And we have the periodicity gap, which is like if you put that this record happens daily, then you can put a gap of, for example, 3 days. So it may be happening like 2 times a week or something. Then we have the repetition type, and this is just if it is unique, fixed, or if it is installments, and wrong value in there again. The thing is, I think I can make this ID mandatory. I can put an ID here, and this ID must be passed because it will be the same ID. And then I can remove this repetition type of unique. And have only fixed and installments. And then in my interface, I can put the repetition as nullable. So if we don't have a repetition, it means that it is unique, and I think that makes sense. And finally, the subcategory, which is the same thing as the category, but we don't have a key. We just have the name that the user gives to the subcategory and a color. So we don't have icons for subcategory. And finally, we have an account balance history. This is just to summarize a whole month. So we can have like 500 or 1,000 registers in a month, and they will all be summarized into one document, so I can have a better performance on the next month to calculate based on the previous month. Which means that if a user uses the system for 10 years, I will have to collect only 120 documents. Basically, we need an account ID, the currency of the account, the balance, because we are summarizing for each currency of this account, the month and the year that we are summarizing this. Then we have a summary for each week, and we also need to know the transfers. And then we have a summary for the income and the total income and the total outcome in this month, in this year, for this account, in that currency. Basically, the transfers are all in the currency that the account is. So if we have an account balance history with the currency code of euro, then all of the transfers will have their income and outcome in euro, despite of the currency code that is here. This is just to keep track of the currency code that we are summarizing this from this account. And this is calculated like if we have the account balance history in euro and then the transfer in GBP, we calculate the income and the outcome in euro with the exchange fee and exchange rate that was registered on the financial records. And if the user changes the exchange fee or the exchange rate, uh, the whole month is also updated. This whole history is also updated. So that is basically all the entities for now. I also have a folder for exceptions, which I don't have nothing in here. I have no exceptions yet. And these are all the commits that I've done so far. Nothing too wild. Now I'm going to do some more, and I'm going to commit everything. Fields, domain, no repetition on unique repetition, no unique record. And then the exchange fee is just a fix because I already had that using strongly typed enum. And we can so another thing that I also did was refactor one of my services, which is the country service. So now here on the core layer, you can see that I have a reference to the domain layer. In the domain layer, I have the shared package. In the infrastructure layer, I have a reference to the core layer. And here on the API, I also have a reference to the core layer. I also made a layer for tests, to run tests. It doesn't have anything for now, but it points to the core layer. So now we have actually this structure that I showed before, which is everyone pointing to the core layer and the domain. And that happens because now I have here on the core layer, I have this data folder, which holds the repository. So it basically dictates how it's going to access data, and then the infrastructure just gotta deal with it. And then I have this iCountry repository, which is just a more specific repository to get the country's names and the country's phone. I have also added two things here that helped me make the service small. I've made this queries folder, which basically I just did this because there was a lot of parameters in these services and they were repetitive. So I just did a class to wrap everything. This is just a list of expression. It has a order by, it has a skip, it has a limit, which is just basically take. And the filters are concatenated using this where function, this where method. We just create a new instance, pass the filters that already exist, and then add this new filter. And I've also added my strategies folder, and I have a queries folder in the strategies. And then I have the interface for the strategy, which basically has only a property filter. And then I'll have the actual implementation of the interface. So it can be with ID, with the ISO 2, ISO 3, and the name of the country. And then I have an extension method to get the strategy based on if the property is null or not. So if the ID is not null, we are going to return the ID strategy and so on. but it can also be no. And this helped me turn this 96 lines, which is not that big. I don't think 96 lines is big. The problem here is this repetition, like if ID, else if ISO2, else if ISO3, and then the same thing happening up here, and then the same thing happening up here, and all of these properties in here. So now all of that became just this. I only have the country repository here. I have the strategy that we are going to use. I pass the property filter in here. And what I'm going to get here is one of the implementations that I did for each strategy. And then the country query, which has all the filters and the skip, take, and the order by. And all of this comes from the country endpoints. So here is how things work. I have the country query here. I pass the skip, I pass the limit, I get the strategy based if the ID, the ISO2, the ISO3, and the country name is null, then we might have a strategy or not. If everything is null, then it just returns everything. It returns all the countries. And here I could also make like a query and say where the country and like country dot, I don't know, name equals, I don't know, something, some country, France, I don't know, something like this. And this filter would be applied in the service. I thought about not having a service at all, like maybe try to change these three methods into something else and not have a service. But I guess this is not the ideal way to do it in this case, because I think it's already good. I have a 25 line file. I'm not going to be working on this service that much, so I think this is good for now. And now I am refactoring the currency service. I think I'm going to refactor the currency service and the messenger service, and I'm just going to make a video refactoring the main service and the history service and the identity service, because I think these three are the most important. So now I'm going to try to just explain the workflow of the system and how I designed everything. So basically, here's what happens at first when the user creates their accounts. We have a user who is creating their account as a premium. He pays the system to create a premium account, and then we have a user that signs for free. They do this by interacting with the front end, and then the back end must verify the payments. I don't have this yet, but this is how it's going to be. Then we return a JWT with the premium row, and I'm using JSON web tokens because the front end can be mobile, can be web, and we can extend from there. And the same things happen with the free plan. All of them communicate with the identity service. The identity service consumes the country and currency code to create this user's account, because the user will have a default currency. And then if the user is premium, they will have their database with their tenant ID. The user has an ID and a tenant ID because in the future we might enable the user to add another users, if that makes sense, under his tenant. But the free users are going to a shared database, and all the register, all the documents, they are going to have a tenant ID, so you can filter documents. Same thing happens with the record service. Both of them are going to interact with the features in the system, and the premium user is going to get access to the premium features, and the free user is not. And because I'm using Next.js, I'm going to do this by rendering things server-side. So Next.js will get the JWT, you'll see if the user is free or premium, and then render something if they are or not server-side first, and then we have the client-side interactive stuff after. If the user somehow, I don't know how, but if somehow a free user tries to access a premium feature, we'll also validate this on the service. And now about the authentication and authorization, here's how it is going to work. We have the front end. The user interacts with the front end. He authenticates and requests a token for authorization. And then the identity service sends back a token with 5 minutes of expiration, a JWT, a JSON Web Token, and also a refresh token. This refresh token can have an expiration of 7 days or something, or unlimited if the user wants. And then we return the JWT and the refresh token. Now, on the second step, which is the user is authenticated, the user is authorized to use the system, the front end is going to request service with the JWT and the refresh token. All of the services that the user interacts with, they need to have the same key as the identity service to validate the token. If the record service has a different key that signed the JWT, then the JWT that was sent from the identity service is not going to be valid. The second step is that the record service checks if the token expired. If it did, it requests the identity service to refresh the token using the refresh token. So after 5 minutes, we refresh the token and send back a new JWT and a new refresh token. And we send the data that the user asked for and also the new tokens. And this is how the system works technically. And I think it will be easier to explain how the system actually works when I had refactored everything and have a functional system to show. But it's basically to keep track of your expenses, and they are all centered in one application. And after, I'm going to implement features to give you feedback. If you're missing money, if you have more money, what can you do with it? Maybe make budgets, and yeah, that's it. Before I finish this video, I just wanted to show you the currency service. It's giving errors right now because I had the infrastructure here and now I'm making a clean architecture. So the repository and the unit of work will be here on the core. But basically, we have a few methods to check if the currency exists, to get the currencies, get the currency by ID, and yeah, that's very simple, I guess. But we also have a service for the exchange rate. Basically, we can send a base currency and a currency to convert. And then we are using an API called Frankfurt something. So this is the Frankfurter. This is the API that we use to have access to currency data and exchange rates. It's a free open source currency data API. It's great. You can check exchange rates from previous months and years, or the latest one, and they update daily at 16 CET. I don't know what this means, but yeah, this is a great API for free. So I think this is it for now. I'm going to finish refactoring this currency service, and I think the next video I'm going to record me actually refactoring the record, the history, and the identity service. I think the identity service first, but the country, the currency, and the messenger service, they are just kind of basic, and that's it. I hope you can give me some ideas of what to do, and maybe things that I've done wrong that you know that I did wrong, and what can I do to make it better, or maybe things that you liked. And yeah, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments, and if you want to know how the system will work, how the system is going to be, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.